Hello, chat. Hello, chat. Welcome in, chat. Hello, everybody in chat. Yes, sir. We are here. Kylo, what's good? This might be a little bit of a different face than you were used to. My name is Avery. I'm the Commander's WalterPicks creator and lead content creator for WalterPicks. And we got a lot to talk about. We got a lot to talk about, chat. First live stream, I guess, technically of the season, right? Right, chat? I think that's exactly what's going on. What is up, everybody? Hopping in the chat, man. Go ahead and spam your start sit questions. Do anything you got to do to get ready because you got to set your lineups, man. It is about that time of year. It is about that time of year. Main question of the chat here, guys. By the way, spam your start sits in the chat. I'm answering as many as I possibly can, giving you as much insights as you possibly can. On the screen right here is WalterPicks top running back rankings for week 1. We do have Saquon Barkley as the number 1 against the Dallas Cowboys, which is a decent defense. But we have Micah Parsons no longer a part of the Cowboys, so that makes it that much easier. Pickens or Pearsall this week in full PPR. That is one that I have been completely back and forth on. The whole range of Pickens, Pearsall, Emeka Egbuka as well. I'm taking the risk with Pearsall. Now, understand he's going to be more risky than Pickens is. Pickens is not a volume guy. He does play tonight. There's possibly some weather concerns with the rain there. I don't think it'll amount to anything too serious. I would go with Pearsall, knowing that he is going to be a little bit more of a risky option. Shout out to Commanders WalterPicks fan in the chat, guys. Dak or Bo Nix. I like Dak's passing volume here. I see Dak or Drake May. I would go with Dak over Drake May. Again, this guy Dak and the Cowboys offense is projected for the second highest pass volume in the league in the total season of the year. And guys, I have a question for you because as of right now, the Cowboys are underdogs by 8.5 points to lose to the Eagles. Now, I am a Commanders fan, so I'm not going to have any bias here, but genuine question. There's no way that doesn't get covered. Am I wrong? There's no way. There's no way. Emeka or Devontae Smith, full PPR. Personally, Dustin, I would be going with Emeka Egbuka. I have him ranked very high for a few reasons. The matchup is amazing. They get one against the Atlanta Falcons. They're projected for I think they allow the third most points to opposing wide receivers here. We can pull up the WalterPicks rankings here, guys, in the start sit tool. You can literally look at it yourself, guys. If you have WalterPicks, you can go to the start sit tool and compare all of your players, and it'll let you know the best case scenario of all these guys. As you can see, Emeka Egbuka has a pretty high boom percentage to outperform his fantasy point number. So I'm taking Emeka Egbuka there. Devonta Smith is kind of at the hands of Jalen Hurts and how many passing attempts he's really going to get. Last season, Jalen Hurts averaged 16.5 completions per game. That was quarterback 34 in the league. Now, there's only 32 starting quarterbacks. That's not necessarily amazing, which means backups came in and averaged more passing attempts. That's just the offense that the Eagles like to run. Let's see here. Are we going with Dak tonight? I have the Pickens stack. I would, especially with the stack. It is a good spot to do it. George Pickens isn't necessarily a high volume guy for as far as scoring his fantasy points, but that comes as a good and a bad thing because he doesn't need 10 receptions to be fantasy viable. He can get 6, 5, and some of them are going to be 40-yard bombs. And Dak Prescott was one of the most accurate quarterbacks in throwing outside the numbers last year. You look at George Pickens, he's obviously one of the best contested catch guys down the field. So I think their play style works very, very well together, and I would like to be making that stack as well. What are your thoughts on David Njoku this year or this week too? I like David Njoku, especially as long pretty much everybody with the Browns guys, as long as we have Joe Flacco in the starting lineup, we're going to be starting these guys. Jerry Jeudy, David Njoku, they're all starts because of the pass volume. This week against the Bengals, now given it is one of the best situations, Joe Flacco is projected for 35.5 pass attempts. That is a line that I'm loving for these receivers. David Njoku and Jerry Jeudy are really the only wide receiver options that we have. Somebody said Hurts or Bo Nix. I would be going with Hurts. The rushing upside is there. Bo Nix has kind of a tough matchup. The Tennessee Titans, not necessarily an amazingly great defense, but they are a run funnel of a defense. They don't allow a lot of fantasy points to wide receivers and tight ends because you can just run the ball on them and be perfectly fine. And you look at the Broncos, they have two very capable running backs in J.K. Dobbins and in new rookie R.J. Harvey, which I think both of their rushing lines are a lot lower than they should be. Saquon's going for 200 tonight. Chat, what do we think Saquon's going for? Let's actually put in our thoughts here. How many yards do we think Saquon's going for? I think he can crack 100 pretty easily. 200 might be a little bit of a reach. Somebody said 2,000. Somebody said 2,000 in the TikTok chat. 175 and 2 touchdowns. Honestly, I would love to see that start to the year. I'm a Commanders fan, so watching the Cowboys and Eagles in the first game is definitely not ideal for me. But if I can see Saquon crush for 2 touchdowns, I'm perfectly fine with that. I did not get Saquon in any of my leagues. I never had an early enough pick. Let me know what you guys are looking like for this season. Let's see here. Do we start Tet McMillan? It depends who over. But the fact that we don't have Adam Thielen in this offense anymore, Jalen Coker is on IR. It is Tet McMillan and it is Xavier Legette. Xavier Legette had a 17.2% team target share last year, essentially as the number one, because he was really the main wide receiver in that offense, surprisingly. And he does not generate a huge target share. Because of that, I think Tet McMillan could be a great start. He gets a matchup against the Jaguars, who are top 7 in fantasy points allowed to the wide receiver position. So if Bryce Young can continue the mini tear that he was on in the end of last season, I think Tet McMillan is a great start this week and in weeks to come as well. Egbuka or Pickens? This is one that I've been completely back and forth on. I have it up on the screen right now as the WalterPicks projection between the two. I would go with Egbuka this week. We don't have to worry about any of the rain, any of the possible weather concerns. And he's just penciled in for such a high target share, guys. Such a high target share. It's him, Mike Evans, and maybe Cade Otton. He's trending to play this week. He hasn't practiced, though. He's been out with an injury. So that is something I love to see. Golden or Jacoby Myers? I would be going with Jacoby Myers this week. I think that's a lot safer of a position. You look at Matthew Golden. He's a great wide receiver in fantasy football. Hopefully, he'll be consistent. The main thing here with him is that the Packers just do not have a wide receiver one. They might have had interim wide receiver ones at points, but they just air the ball out to everybody and anyone. So it's really hard. So in week 1, I definitely wouldn't go. I wouldn't go there. Let's see. Dak or JJ McCarthy? I'm taking Dak Prescott. I think JJ McCarthy can actually turn into something late down the line of the season, but not right now. Not against the Bears defense. Not against the Bears defense, chat. Devontae or Garrett Wilson in week 1? I'm taking Devontae Adams. I'm not a huge Garrett Wilson believer on the season simply because of the situation. The downfall to Garrett Wilson has always been the quarterback situation. He's one of the most talented receivers in the league, but now you deal with Justin Fields, who has been bottom 5 in passing attempts per game, and it's just Garrett Wilson. You take him out of the game and they have no offense. So I'm a little bit worried, and it's a very negative matchup against the Steelers defense this week. So it is definitely something I'm coming in with some caution with. Jake Ferguson or Kyle Pitts? The first Kyle Pitts question of the year that I've seen. I would be wrong to say Kyle Pitts is not the interesting answer. It is a very, very positive matchup against the Buccaneers defense. They allow a lot of passing yards. I have not been big on Kyle Pitts all year, but the things just keep trending in the right direction. Darnell Mooney is week to week with a shoulder injury. I would honestly not be mad at you for going Kyle Pitts. And I also just don't see the huge upside for Jake Ferguson this week, again, with the addition of Pickens in a game that is probably going to be dominated by the Eagles, at least what the books projected to be. Let's see. Answer some more of these questions here. Guys, spam the chat with your questions. DK or Waddle? Guys, how many of you guys were unfortunate enough to end up with DK on your roster? I'm very curious. I would go with Waddle over DK Metcalf because the pass volume again is not there. The Steelers have had one of the lowest pace of plays in the NFL for the longest time. And Arthur Smith loves to run the ball. His run to pass percentage is definitely not where you want it to be. And DK Metcalf, I'm worried if he's going to fit the script of exactly what Aaron Rodgers does. I don't think DK can work in the shotgun West Coast style offense. He's a vertical threat. He's a touchdown threat, but he averaged like a really low fantasy point per route run number last year. And now he gets possibly a downgrade, if not the same quarterback, from Darnold to Geno or Darnold to Aaron Rodgers from last season. It is a little bit risky. And then you look into week 1, the Jets and the Steelers are projected for the lowest scoring game total of the week. So it's definitely not a place where I'm loving to start DK. Let's see. Bo Nix or Caleb Williams in week 1? I'm going Bo Nix here. I know Caleb Williams is a hot name. It is a little bit tough in the very first week against a very good Vikings defense. So I'm taking Bo Nix there. JD5 or Dak Prescott? I've gotten that question a lot more than I would expect. You're going Jaden Daniels. I know the Giants are pretty good at pressuring the quarterback, but Jaden Daniels you took as probably a second or third round pick for a reason. Debo or Kelsey? My goodness. I'd probably go with Debo Samuel there, if I'm being completely honest. I got a T. Higgins question in the chat. Where did it go? Where did it go, chat? Chat, where'd it go? Pickens or Ridley? You know what? This is a good question. Guys, anybody that has Calvin Ridley, I have loved drafting him. I have absolutely loved drafting him this year in fantasy football. But this is not the week to trust Calvin Ridley because he gets matched up against Patrick Surtain, who allows the number 1 least amount of fantasy points to opposing wide receivers every single week. And now he's back after a Defensive Player of the Year season. It's tough. It's tough. And that is coming in a matchup where if you take Calvin Ridley out with a rookie quarterback in Cam Ward in his first game, it's going to be very hard for the Titans to generate some offense. And I am not loving that. So I would definitely take George Pickens over Calvin Ridley. Devonta Smith or DJ Moore? I will go Devonta Smith this week in hopes that this game is closer than the books projected to be. The Eagles are projected to win this game by over a touchdown. I think that's absolute blasphemy. Shout out to Stephen A. Smith. But it's insane. I think it'll be a lot closer than people expect. Let's see. What is up to everybody in the chat, bro? Keep spamming your questions. I'm answering as many as I possibly can. Do I start T. Higgins or Devontae Smith? Alex, that is a great question because my answer to you is going to be T. Higgins. T. Higgins is on a roster, on a team that passes the most in the NFL. Their defense is still very, very bad and lackluster this year. They have to generate so much offense. Last year, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins ran almost 10 more routes per game than A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith did. Now, granted, this is 2 completely polar opposite offenses, one that passes the most in the NFL and one that passes the least. But when you're getting 10 more routes, 10 more opportunities, there's more targets, more touchdowns coming your way, and T. Higgins is going to get that against the Browns this week. Now, there is a blowout potential in that game, but I'll take that potential of high pass volume because the Bengals have a history of losing week 1. And what has it been? 4 straight years where they lose week 1? Something crazy like that. So that's an even bigger reason to say that this game will continue to have some pass volume next to it. How do we feel about Dante Thornton with the no Amari Cooper? I think he is a sleeper. He's a guy that I would stash on the back end of my bench. He still has to beat Trey Tucker out of the depth chart, which honestly isn't impossible. But I think he's a guy that you want to stash. Another guy, by the way, everybody in this chat, if you're in this chat right now, consider yourself lucky. I do not understand how Tajay Spears is not rostered in over 50% of leagues, guys. I get he's injured, high ankle sprain, I believe it is. But guys, we are going to see him on the field eventually. Tony Pollard is a great start this week against the Denver Broncos, which is kind of a hot take because the Broncos, again, have one of the best defenses in the NFL. But when you look at Tony Pollard, the second best running back on the roster is Julius Chestnut. Does anybody know who Julius Chestnut is? I do because I'm a sicko. But does anybody know who Julius Chestnut is? Tony Pollard is going to get a lot of work. The Titans are projected to lose this game by a decent amount. A lot of checkdowns are going his way. Somebody in the chat said I do. Somebody knows who Julius Chestnut is. Shout out to you guys, man. You guys are absolute geniuses. But yeah, it's going to be Tony Pollard and nobody else. So Tajay Spears needs to be rostered in every single league because when he does come back, he's going to get a good amount of receiving work because he did last year. So I definitely do like that as a stash play. Do we go DK or Devontae Smith? This is a great question from the chat. I would go Devontae Smith. I'm kind of a public non-believer of both of these guys simply because of the situations. If they were both in better, higher passing volume offenses, I'd love them. But I would go with Devontae Smith on this one. DK Metcalf gets the worst matchup, essentially, outside of Patrick Surtain and the Broncos against the Jets. Sauce Gardner is a very real corner that you do have to be worried about. And this game with the Jets and the Steelers are projected to be one of the lowest scoring, actually the lowest scoring of the week at 38.5. That is worrisome, chat. Chat, that is scary. If he doesn't score a touchdown, he's not scoring fantasy football points. So I am slightly worried about that. Shout out to everybody in the YouTube live though. If you guys are in here chilling out with me, we got 230 people in the YouTube chat. Hit that like button if you haven't already. We are in here going crazy, trying to answer as many start-sit questions, but really just excited and happy to get going for week 1 of fantasy football. By the way, guys, you will see me on this channel a lot more every Thursday talking about fantasy football. So if you would like that, hit the subscribe button if you're new. But keep spamming your start-sit questions, man. We're having an absolute amazing time. Pickens or Flowers? I would go Pickens this week. Flowers gets a pretty decent matchup against the Buffalo Bills simply because that is the highest scoring projected game of the week. But the Ravens don't pass a ton, man. They don't need to pass, and they don't need to pepper Zay Flowers with targets to win that game. Dak does need to pass a lot, CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens, to be able to stay in this game. I've seen a lot of questions about Ricky Pearsall in this chat, which is understandable because he is one of the most confusing start-sit questions. Ricky Pearsall is a guy I'm starting, guys. I have him as a top 20 receiver this week. Juwan Jennings has not been practicing with his calf injury, I believe it is. And it's a positive matchup. Dalton Kincaid or Kyle Pitts. Wow. Honestly, I'm just going to go with Kyle Pitts on that one and hope that my king Kyle Pitts can return some value for us because Darnell Mooney is week to week with a shoulder injury. So there is a real chance he just gets more targets because of that. It can't all be Drake London. Calvin Ridley or Amari Cooper in the chat. Josh, Calvin Ridley is a guy that I am not super high on because he's playing against Patrick Surtain. This corner allows the number 1 least amount of fantasy points per game to opposing wide receivers. But I am still going with Calvin Ridley there. Cooper Kupp is not a guy that I'm trusting by any means. He gets brought onto a Seahawks offense. First of all, it's telling that the Rams let him walk for nothing. Yes, they replaced him with Devontae Adams, but if he was that good, why let him walk? You come to the Seahawks. He is the exact same build of wide receiver as JSN is. They are both amazing slot wide receivers. So now the big question becomes, what is his role going to be in this offense? And I don't trust him enough in week 1 with a respectfully terrible quarterback in Sam Darnold. We saw how he ended last season to support him in fantasy football. So I don't think the upside is there for Cooper Kupp. Obviously, the upside is lower for Calvin Ridley than a lot of other receivers this year as well, or this week. But Ridley is still the guy I'm going with. He is still, unfortunately, the guy I'm going with. Dak or Joe Burrow this week? I'm going with Joe Burrow. Again, I love Dak in this matchup. Everybody in the chat that's asking questions about Dak Prescott if we're starting or sitting him, I like Dak Prescott a lot this week. I think he's perfectly startable. A top 10 quarterback. But you got to be starting the guys that you drafted early for a reason. We're starting Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Jaden Daniels. We're starting those guys every single week. Hampton, Henderson, or Devontae Smith? Hampton, TreVeyon Henderson, or Devontae Smith at the flex. If it's in a PPR league, I might feel safest going with Devontae Smith. TreVeyon Henderson would be a very close second for me, though. Guys, when you look at Omarion Hampton, he gets a matchup against the Chiefs, which has one of the better run defenses in the NFL. Najee is also healthy this week. There's a wide range of possibilities that we could see. Are we starting the Eagles defense? That is a great question. It's not one that I am extremely happy about. You can see on screen here they are projected for they're projected for 4.8 fantasy points. The Dallas Cowboys is an offense that generates points. Now, the Eagles are projected to win this game by 8.5, which I think is a little bit crazy. I'm not starting the Eagles defense. I think you can get a lot better guys even on waivers. The Rams defense, they get a matchup against the Texans, who really do not have an offensive line. I think they can generate a ton of sacks, possibly a turnover on CJ Stroud. Again, if you take Nico Collins out, what is the offense? I love the Rams defense this week. The Bengals are even a sleeper defense. It's not one that I'm super confident in starting because, again, it's the Bengals, but you're also playing the Browns. So I think there is an opportunity to get some stash defenses. And guys, the number one strategy for defenses is to just stream them off the waiver wire. It is statistically proven that if you stream your defense off the waiver wire, you average more fantasy points per game from your defense than if you were to just stick with like the Bills defense for the entire year. So definitely take that into account. Somebody said Matt Forte or Eddie Lacy. That is a great question. Chat, what do you think? Oh, I pinned the wrong one. K9 or Worthy? I would go with Worthy. I think Worthy is at a great value this week against the Chargers defense, and he really is the wide receiver one again because we don't have Rashee Rice from suspension. My answer to you would be Eddie Lacy, though. Shout out Eddie Lacy, man. Somebody else in the chat said Eddie Lacy, too. Yeah, you guys are hit, bro. You guys know what's up. You guys know what's up. Dak or Mahomes, I see in the chat. I would be going with Dak this week. The pass volume is expected to be beautiful. Amazing even. Amazing even. Pickens or Ridley? Oh, man, these chats keep going by so fast. I can't find them. But I would definitely go with Pickens over Calvin Ridley. Guys, if you have Calvin Ridley, it is a scary matchup against Patrick Surtain and the Broncos. Extremely scary. I am worried. Patrick Surtain allows the number one least number of fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. He did last year. He won Defensive Player of the Year for a reason. Calvin Ridley, all due respect, is going to get locked up this week, and I'm scared. I drafted Calvin Ridley a good amount in my leagues. I'm worried. I'm worried, bro. Penix or Caleb Williams, somebody said in the chat. I would be going with Caleb Williams pretty easily over Michael Penix this week. Penix is not a guy that we should be starting until he proves otherwise. You know what I mean? He has the weapons, but we have not seen him outside of what, maybe 4 games last season. So we're not starting Penix just yet. Player prop, Kylo. Player prop, bro. I have a good amount. I will say that the WalterPicks app does have an evaluator for them. It is the number one way to get an edge in props. I really do think Brenton Strange can surpass 27 yards. That seems absolutely free. It's a great matchup against the Panthers. If we're talking about this game today, Dak's over passing yards, whatever it's set at, probably 225, I'm guessing. I would take that. JSN or Pickens, who should I start? I would start JSN. I like Pickens. The offense is going to be great, but you got to start JSN. Do I flex Pitts, Bateman, or Okonkwo? I would go Bateman is the high risk, high reward player. I might lean him because this game between the Bills and the Ravens are projected to be by everywhere the highest scoring game of the week. And we see in those games, Bateman does do some things. Now, they do have DeAndre Hopkins on the roster now. More targets can go to him. But Rashad Bateman doesn't need a ton of receptions to be fantasy viable. And I like that. That's what I like for my fantasy football players. That's what I love to see. That's what I absolutely love to see. TJ Hawkinson or Rashad Bateman at the flex in a PPR league. I would not go Rashad Bateman in that situation. We're digging a little bit too deep down in the depths. Please answer my question. DJ Moore or Pickens, please. I got you. DJ Moore or Pickens, I would honestly lean with George Pickens in this matchup. I like DJ Moore. There's a ton riding on this game for what we're about to see from the Bears, what Ben Johnson has cooked up. And when you have a great wide receiver in George Pickens, I would take the security in that and then reassess what we're looking at with the Bears next week. Because you have Rome Odunze, you have DJ Moore, You have Luther Burden, who probably won't see a lot of the field early, but you also have Colston Loveland, who's going to get the ball. You also have DeAndre Swift, who is always top 10, top 15 in target share. And Caleb Williams is the backbone of all of that. Can he produce? That's the question for this week against a pretty tough Vikings defense. So I will go with George Pickens on that, and then we reassess after this week. Guys, don't overthink too much the start-sit decisions in week 1. A lot is assess and then figure it out from there. Now, when I say assess, it's not George Pickens only put up 5 fantasy points. He must be bad. You look at the snap percentage, you look at how many routes he was running, you look at what routes he was running. Were they all go routes? Were they dig routes? Were they slants? Is it something that was bad because the matchup was bad? Was the rain? You reassess those situations, and then you make the buy low, the sell high situations after that in week 2, week 3, week 4, week 5. If you guys want to continue to be ahead on how to do just that and create super teams and win fantasy football, hit that subscribe button. We got a ton of people in the chat. We've been going live for a minute. I absolutely love hanging out with you guys, especially now that the NFL season is actually here. I will be going live every single Thursday before these games, so make sure to be followed for that. If you like my face, you like my knowledge, and I love hanging out with you guys in the chat as well. So please keep spamming your questions. I am only as good as you guys allow me to be with these questions. So keep giving me some information and some knowledge to keep on going. Cup or Deebo Samuel? It's me. We're going with Deebo Samuel on this. There is a wide range of possibilities for both of these players, but when you look at Deebo, there is a story to tell. He gets usage in the run game. They just got rid of Brian Robinson. You can expect the Commanders to use him a lot more in jet sweeps. I honestly, as a Commanders fan and watching way more game film than I should have on this team, I think he's going to be using the red zone a good amount for these running backs. None of them were really that efficient in the red zone last year, which is why Jaden Daniels had so many rushing touchdowns there. I think Deebo Samuel can be a little bit of a sleeper. He could sneak into the end zone this week. I'm not banking on it, but I do think his upside is higher than Cooper Kupp in that aspect. Let's see here. Amarion Hampton or George Pickens as my second flex. Greg, I will go with George Pickens there. It might be a little bit more boom bust because he doesn't have a guaranteed target share. But when I look at Amarion Hampton, I see a guy going against a top run defense in the Chiefs as a rookie and also possibly splitting with Najee Harris. It's a wait and see situation for me. I'm starting Amarion, but if we have a guy like George Pickens waiting at the flex, I would go with him. The Cowboys are going to pass a good amount to keep up with the Eagles offense. It is a situation that I like to target. George Pickens might be a little bit more of a stronger option there for you. Garrett Wilson or Tet McMillan? Gavin, this is a tough question because we drafted Garrett Wilson so early for a reason. But you look at it and you have to go Tet McMillan. Garrett Wilson gets a matchup against the Steelers, which is one of the toughest to score fantasy football points on per game. The defense is still great. And it's the lowest projected game total of the week at 38.5 with the Steelers and the Jets. That is not a game environment where I'm targeting the wide receivers. I think Garrett Wilson can get a great amount of targets, but are they going to be valuable and are they going to be catchable? Justin Fields was in the bottom half of the league in catchable target rate thrown to his wide receivers. That's not a high upside situation. I would go Tet McMillan because of that. He gets a very positive matchup against the Jacksonville defense. They allow a lot of fantasy points and a lot of NFL scores and team points per game and per week. So Tet McMillan there is the wide receiver 1 with no Adam Thielen, with Jalen Coker on IR. Might be a little bit more risky because he is a rookie and it's his first game with Bryce Young, but it's a situation I'm willing to take that risk on, especially down there at the flex. PPR flex, Kenny, do we go Ford Pollard or Matthew Golden? I would go with Tony Pollard in this matchup. Matthew Golden, I think, has the highest ceiling here against the Lions defense. The Lions defense was injured everywhere all throughout last season. So it is a note to say that they probably will be a decent amount better this year. Matthew Golden projected to be the number 1. Is there really a number 1 for the Packers right now? They throw the ball to everybody and anybody. We saw Dontavian Wicks getting a good amount of routes last year. Obviously, Jaden Reed, he's dealing with a bit of an injury. Tony Pollard, I believe, is going to get a ton of receptions this week. And Jerome Ford, decent matchup, but it's a complete committee backfield. I honestly think Pierre Strong is going to get some touches here as well. Javonte Williams or J.K. Dobbins, Trent. I would take J.K. Dobbins over Javonte Williams. I have Javonte outside my top 30 running backs for this week. He's playing the number one toughest run defense in the Eagles. We saw week after week after week last year, you can't really run on the Eagles. It's tough to do. And you have Javonte Williams, who has been getting worse and worse and worse in efficiency and yards per carry every single year since his ACL injury, on a new offense now with backfield competition. It's not great backfield competition. You got Miles Sanders, but it's still there. Jaden Blue could get some snaps. I just don't want to trust it. And I believe J.K. Dobbins in a very positive matchup against the Titans, who is a complete run funnel of a defense, can get a good amount of touches. J.K. Dobbins and R.J. Harvey are both projected way too low for their reception or for their rushing yard line. I'm taking both of that. The Broncos are projected to win this game by a touchdown. They're just going to be funneling these running backs. See, now Dan is getting to the tough hitting questions. He's getting to the real questions. Do we go R.J. Harvey or J.K. Dobbins? I would go R.J. Harvey in this week. I know a lot of people were worried about him popping up as I believe it was RB4 on the depth chart. That was preseason. I'm not worried about preseason depth charts. There has never been a correlation between preseason depth chart usage and NFL usage. There is something to be said about him being a rookie, and they have a very viable running back in J.K. Dobbins here. But I think R.J. Harvey is going to be the guy we go with this week, and this week is going to tell a lot about what we can expect. It's going to tell a great amount of what to expect. Pickens or Jameson Williams? Bobo, I will go with Pickens. They're about the same build of wide receiver because they're both not huge target guys, but I believe in George Pickens more. Do we hold J.C. Merritt? That is a great question. I love to see that. I believe we do hold. I would definitely not consider starting him. I know a lot of people, for some reason, are doing that. It's going to be a committee backfield here. We have Austin Eckler as the RB1, technically in the receiving game. And then we have Chris Rodriguez, who's going to be the goal line back. It's all ugly. You have Jaden Daniels rushing the ball. It's not something I love to see. Here are our running back rankings right here. Obviously, Saquon is the number one. Christian McCaffrey, very, very high over Bijan Robinson because of the matchup here. Emeka Egbuka or Garrett Wilson? Gavin, this is another great question from you. I'm honestly taking Emeka Egbuka in this situation. Garrett Wilson's great, but again, it's a very negative matchup. The Jets and the Steelers are projected 38 total points. There's very low scoring potential. Emeka Egbuka, on the other hand, every single time we've seen the Buccaneers play the Falcons is a shootout of a matchup. You get I believe in week 5, it was 36-30 win in overtime. In week 8 last year, I believe it was 26-20 something. It's high scoring games every single time, and both of the defenses are very much pass funnels. So Emeka Egbuka as the wide receiver 2 next to Mike Evans, with Chris Godwin injured, with Jalen McMillan on IR. It's a situation I love to see. Here we go, Justin. Pick 2, Ridley. Oh, it went away. Pick 2, Ridley, Pickens, Devonta Smith, Jalen Warren. I'm going with George Pickens, number 1. I am not going with... I think it has to be George Pickens and Devonta Smith. I think you have to ride on this game tonight being fantasy football viable because Jalen Warren, again, very negative matchup against the Jets defense, and he's also splitting with Caleb Johnson. Calvin Ridley gets the number 1 worst matchup against Patrick Surtain and the Broncos this week. Pickens easily, and then it has to be Devonta Smith, even though I don't love the pass volume there from them. And then we get another question here. Do I flex Pickens, Pearsall, or James Cook? I would go with James Cook in this situation. Again, I love all 3 of these guys. Try to fit them in your starting lineup if you can. But James Cook is in a matchup against the Ravens, who is a great run defense, but the game is projected to be the number 1 highest scoring of the week. So I want to pick the players where I can because of that upside. He might be a bit more risky, but we've seen how many touchdowns he's been able to score, and they're going to use him in that red zone role, especially in week 1, before Ray Davis has a chance to get any run in the backfield, or even Ty Johnson. Do I drop Bill for B-Rob, Jordan? I would, if you believe in Bill, I would just keep Bill because B-Rob won't really be anything. He's never going to be startable until Christian McCaffrey gets injured. And so in that case, he's just a higher quality name of a backup running back, of a handcuff. I think Bill can build a role for himself at some point in the year. It will take a while. as a Commanders fan myself, I've watched way too much film on Bill and this entire offense in general. It's always going to be a committee because Jaden Daniels is there as well, and he takes rushing upside from these guys. But I would hold on to Bill, especially with the hype that's around his name. If he does fall into the end zone in week 1, you can probably flip him for some pretty good value or just hold him because that was enough for you. How do I feel about starting Josh Downs? Kent, that's a good question. Josh Downs, for me, another one of those guys that doesn't need a ton of targets to be fantasy football viable. It is a relatively positive matchup against the Miami Dolphins defense. It's not a guy that I'm rushing to start, though. I think Michael Pittman is going to be the main benefactor of Anthony Richardson not playing. The entire offense for the Jets, fantasy football wise, sorry, not the Jets, the Colts, was always an Anthony Richardson problem. Anthony Richardson, I believe, was either first or second in uncatchable target rate thrown to his wide receivers. If the ball is not in your catch radius, you're not catching. Like, there's no chance. So with Daniel Jones, he's not great, but he's better than last. I think that's going to benefit Josh Downs. We also saw Daniel Jones lead Malik Neighbors to a top 7 fantasy football finish last year. With that being said, Michael Pittman did average over 13 fantasy points per game in his games without Anthony Richardson last year. So I would wait on Downs, but I definitely think he's a guy you should continue to stash and get ready for the coming weeks. Let's see. Start 2, DK, Waddle, or Swift. Daniel, I would not be starting DK in this matchup against the Jets. Sauce Gardner is a real corner. The Jets allow, I believe, the 5th least fantasy points per game to wide receivers they did last year. Nothing's really changed / gotten worse on the defense. So DK is a guy I'm sitting. I would start Swift. I would start Jalen Waddle. Egbuka or Pickens? Mitchell, this is a great question. Egbuka or Pickens is one of the highest asked questions I've seen. I'll pull it up on the screen here for you in the WalterPicks app here. We have Emeka Egbuka projected for more fantasy football points and a higher boom probability to outscore his projections. Emeka Egbuka is a guy that we're going to be starting, and I would start him over George Pickens. Less target competition. This game is projected to be a high-scoring game. It always has been. Last year, I believe the average score of this game was like 50-something. Like, it was insane. But Baker Mayfield's a top passing quarterback. Both of these offenses are going to score a decent amount, and you don't have any of these other wide receivers to take any usage away from him outside of Mike Evans. Waddle or Pearsall? I'm going with Ricky Pearsall over Jalen Waddle. Jalen Waddle, I believe, is a good wide receiver this year. A guy that if you got, I'm happy about. But Ricky Pearsall gets a very positive matchup against the Seahawks. They're about neutral in fantasy points allowed to the wide receivers, but Purdy is projected for a decent amount of pass volume. It's going to go to Ricky Pearsall. There's really nobody else. They have George Kittle, who's technically going to be the wide receiver 1 here. Juwan Jennings hasn't been practicing with a calf injury. There's a chance that they're a little bit off on that. And I do think Ricky Pearsall is going to be a top wide receiver. You do have to be aware he is going to carry a little bit more risk than the rest of these guys. So just know that. Let's look at this. The game is about to start. Can you please pick Colston Loveland or Dallas Goedert? I think Dallas Goedert is going to be your safer floor play. I think Colston Loveland is an amazing value for when we get a little bit later down into the season. Again, the entire Bears offense is one that I'm waiting to see. How are these guys going to be used? How much are the tight ends going to be used? They can still run 2 tight end sets with him and Cole Kmet. I would go with Dallas Goedert. I think he's projected for a safer floor in a game that the Eagles are projected to score a lot in. Caleb Johnson or Breece Hall? Adam, this is an atrocious question. I am so unfortunately sorry that you have to deal with this. I would go with Breece Hall. It's a really negative matchup. They're not projected to score a lot, but both of these players play in the same games. They're dealing with the same issues, and Breece Hall catches passes. So I would take Breece Hall over Caleb Johnson there. Ingram or Warren? If we're talking Tyler Warren, I would lean Tyler Warren, surprisingly. Let's see here. Dak or Kyler Murray? I would lean Dak. I think the pass volume is going to be there. The Eagles are projected to win this game by over a touchdown, which I think is kind of insane. So someone's going to have to keep up with that. And Dak has some great options. They've never really been a run-first team, and Javonte Williams is not going to start that movement for them. Chaz, you got Pearsall as your flex. That's beautiful. I think Pearsall is a great flex. Let me go back here to the wide receiver rankings here. Guys, if you want to get the rest of the wide receiver rankings, this is in the WalterPicks app. I can pull up the running back rankings as well. Guys, by the way, the WalterPicks app has a start-sit tool you guys can all use for yourself. If you use code Avery inside the app when you download it, you can get, number one, a free trial to all of the subscription side of the app, the props, league sync, everything. But you can also compare your players and see here the boom and bust potential between all of your guys. So you know exactly what you're getting into every single week. You can see here that Emeka Egbuka is projected for the most fantasy point boom probability. I'm going to be starting Emeka Egbuka because I want those points. So if you guys want to try it out for yourself, just download WalterPicks. You can throw my code Avery in there, answer all of your start-sit questions coming into week 1. This is a very, very important game. We got to get it right, guys. We got to lock in. Let's see. Another question here coming from the YouTube chat. Flex, Pearsall or Marvin Harrison Jr. or Tet? I would honestly go Ricky Pearsall over both these guys. It might sound crazy. He definitely is the riskiest. If you want the safe floor, it's likely going to be Tet. But I would go Ricky Pearsall. This is, again, a question that I would throw in the WalterPicks app because I have them all so very, very closely ranked in my rankings. If you download WalterPicks, throw code Avery in there. You can put your start-sit questions in, and it'll let you know the best option possible. Thank you so much. I got you. Shout out to you, man. Pinning that comment. Thank you for asking your question, guys. Anybody left in this chat, we are coming up very quick, very closely to the kickoff. Shout out to everybody in this stream, man. I hope you guys are having a beautiful night. I know I am, answering all these start-sit questions. Flex Jerry Jeudy. Uh-oh. Did I even pin it? I did not pin it. Where'd it go? Where'd it go, chat? There it is. There it is, chat. There it is, chat. There it is, chat. Jerry Jeudy, ETN, or Hunter. I would go with Jerry Jeudy this week. If I'm being completely honest, I think Jerry Jeudy has the best option to outperform his point projection because he's getting a matchup against the Bengals, who they allow so many points. Thank you, no problem. I appreciate you guys asking your start-sit questions. They allow so many points to the wide receivers. You have Joe Flacco, who's always predicted to be a top passing attempt guy because of what the offense looks like. They have to pass. They absolutely have to pass. And he is the number one option here with David Njoku. I love both of them. I think they're both great options. As you can see here, we're comparing the Eagles defense and the Commanders defense over here on the chat. The Commanders defense is kind of a sleeper, guys. I'm not going to lie. The Commanders defense is a little bit of a sleeper defense. Flowers or Myers? This is tough. This is really tough for me because my situation here is that Zay Flowers gets a matchup against the Bills where it's the highest projected scoring game of the week. So I'm going Zay Flowers on that. Jacoby Myers, the Patriots are not a really positive matchup. He gets against Christian Gonzalez, who is a very good corner. So it's gonna be a little tough. Cameron, do we go Travis Hunter or Xavier Worthy this week? I would go with Xavier Worthy. Travis Hunter is great. We know he's going to be splitting on offense and defense. It's a positive matchup against the Panthers. But Xavier Worthy, as the wide receiver 1, tied to Patrick Mahomes in a matchup against the Chargers, should be a very good game with high upside. Let's see here. Are we taking Jameson Williams or Emeka Egbuka? I would be taking Emeka Egbuka there. Again, the upside is absolutely unmatched. There's a lot of pass volume projected to be going around in this offense. Eckler or ETN, Kyle, we are digging deep, bro. We are digging deep in our start-sit questions. I would go with Travis Etienne. He has the best potential to actually be something. Yes, there's a ton of running backs in that backfield, but there's also a ton for both teams here. Austin Eckler, probably only the receiving back. I don't think he's really going to be used in the red zone when you have Jaden Daniels, you have Chris Rodriguez, who Dan Quinn has already said is going to be the main red zone back. ETN gets a great matchup against the Panthers. I think that's one where I'm willing to take that risk. James Cook or Jalen Warren to start? Definitely James Cook. Definitely James Cook. I'm starting Pickens, wide receiver 2, Ridley Downs, Hunter, Juan Jennings. Juwan Jennings is decent here, or Harvey as the flex. Please answer. Okay, so Pickens is your number 1. I would lean Travis Hunter. RJ Harvey is a close number 2 for me. But out of Juwan Jennings and Travis Hunter, I would go with Travis Hunter. He is still a generational talent, believe it or not. Thanks, no problem, Ryan. Thank you for commenting. Flex Travis Etienne or Calvin Ridley. I would go Calvin Ridley there. Again, everybody in the chat knows that I'm not a big Calvin Ridley guy this week because of how good Patrick Surtain is. But there's a real chance that Travis Etienne gets you like 3 fantasy points. And that's not something I'm willing to take in week 1. You don't want to overthink it too much. Need to know Thursday Night Football, Dak or Michael Penix? Definitely going with Dak. Definitely going with Dak there. Thursday Night Football question, do we go Warren or Ferguson at tight end? Call me crazy, but I would go Warren in that start sit question. Ferguson is great. He didn't score a single touchdown last year. I think that honestly does have to come up. But when you look at the tight end position and when you look at upside on its own, I think Tyler Warren is going to have that. His matchup is more positive as well against the Miami Dolphins defense. They are top 10 in fantasy points allowed to the tight ends. Ferguson gets a matchup against the Eagles, which is bottom 10. So it definitely is a little bit tough there as far as that aspect, but that's definitely who I would go with there for you. Thanks, man. No problem. Guys, everybody in the chat, everybody's so positive, man. Give a little round of applause for you. I'm going to be on this live stream every Thursday with you guys answering start sit questions. I absolutely love hanging out with you. Sam will always be on the WalterPicks YouTube live streams on Sundays doing his Sunday morning live streams. He is actually in Spain right now. So shout out to the boss man going on vacation. He may or may not be live this week if the Wi-Fi allows him to be. So just be aware, be ready for that. Marvin Harrison Jr. or Mike Evans. I would definitely go with Mike Evans on that one. Again, the pass volume is projected to be great. Marvin Harrison Jr. has a very wide range of outcomes. Now, the matchup is very, very good. The matchup is great. But we just don't know what to expect, guys. There could be anything. Anything could happen. Anything could happen. Dak or Bo Nix? I would be going with Dak in this matchup. Ferg, I'll be going with Dak here. Fields or Dak? Tough question, bro. Because I actually do like Justin Fields, but not this week, guys. Not this week. Very tough matchup, very low scoring, lowest scoring projected matchup of the week. You cannot be going with Justin Fields here. You just can't. Love or Drake May? I would be going with Jordan Love. Actually, I lied. Guys, I don't ever lie, but I just did on accident. I would be going with Drake May in this matchup because of the rushing upside that he does have. I think he's a guy that you can trust. Now, the Raiders defense is good. It's not great. But when you look at Drake May, I believe he averaged 40 something. Let me look it up real quick. I believe Drake May averaged over 40 rushing attempt, 35.1 rushing yards a game last year. That was good for the quarterback 5. That can continue here. I think Drake May is going to do great. Now, I do have them very, very close in my rankings, but Drake May is going to be a little bit more of that high risk, high reward player for you. Let's see here. It depends who you have with the flex. It depends who you have with the flex. Devonta Smith is like a fringe start for me. He is still a start, but again, the pass volume is definitely a little bit worrisome here in this matchup. Shout out to everybody still here in this live stream. We got the first Thursday Night Football game of the year starting in less than 2 minutes. Less than 2 minutes, guys. We're absolutely jumping in here. Do I go with Jerry Jeudy or Emeka Egbuka? I would go with Emeka Egbuka in this one. I like them both. I think they're great options. Both of them have very high pass volume expected. Emeka Egbuka, though, number 2 wide receiver, has been working up the depth chart all camp. We don't have any Chris Godwin. He is filling in one-to-one with the role that Chris Godwin had. That is the same slot wide receiver position that was the wide receiver 3 in fantasy football points per game when Chris Godwin was healthy. So that is a situation that I love to take. Now, is he Chris Godwin? No, he's not. But he's definitely going to have the opportunities to get there. Dak or Kyler, bro? I would be going with Dak. Thanks, no problem. Shout out to you, man. Shout out to you. Everybody's still in this chat here. You guys are absolutely amazing. Feel free to get your snacks, get ready for this amazing matchup against the Cowboys and the Eagles. Do I think it's amazing? I'm a Commanders fan, so hey, maybe not. But I'm going to love watching some football, I'll tell you that much. Shout out to everybody in the chat, bro. If you guys are new, make sure to be subscribed, be followed so you can get this live stream and these videos every single week. And hit that like button if you appreciate the live stream, man. We've been in here for a good minute. Let me go ahead and get my wide receiver rankings up here on the board just as like a last little thing up here. Actually, you know what? I can do you one better. I can do you one better, chat. Look at that. This is the My League tool inside the WalterPicks app. You can filter your team to be the best, highest projected, the highest boom, the lowest bust, everything in there to make sure you finesse and start the best players every single week. Rate my team, chat. This team is kind of cracked. I do have another quarterback on my bench. Trust me, it is not just Justin Fields. But you guys can check your roster as well inside the WalterPicks app. Guys, we are here. We are starting. We are here, guys. This is the last start sit question of the chat. Emeka Egbuka or George Pickens. We're going with Emeka Egbuka there. The upside is absolutely amazing. 4 out of 10. That's what I love to see, man. Yeah, I would be going with Emeka Egbuka over George Pickens. Shout out to everybody in the chat, man. The games have officially begun. If you guys have been in this chat the whole time, shout out to you guys. Make sure to follow the stream if you guys are new. We will be going live every single Thursday before these games. So I would love to see you guys in that. Good luck in fantasy football this week, and I will see you guys in the next one coming very, very soon. Very soon, chat.